Hi everyone, my name is Clara Choi, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my research paper on Gertrude Stein and Picasso called Picasso Through Gertrude Stein, A Modernist Perspective. But first, let me talk about a little bit about myself. So my name is Clara Choi, I'm a 7'4". My mentor's name is Isabel Gass, and ever since I was young, I've had a passion for art, which also fueled my interest in looking at and researching artists and their biographies. I chose this project because I really enjoyed Picasso's artwork and I want to explore more about his and Gertrude Stein's story. Currently a sophomore at Saratoga High School and I'm presenting from Saratoga, California. Born in 1874, Gertrude Stein was a Paris-based Jewish American and an influential 20th century modernist writer. As a close friend of Cubist artist Pablo Picasso, Gertrude Stein wrote copiously about him in many of her works, including Picasso, 1938, If I Told Him, and the autobiography of Alice P. Toklas, among others. Much like Picasso was, Stein was an avid supporter of Cubism, a movement characterized by new ways of representing reality. Early in Picasso's career, Stein and their brother Leo were devoted patrons of Picasso's art, becoming his principal collectors until 1914 when they could no longer afford to purchase his work. Stein was also known as a homosexual and many described her as masculine, intelligent, and dependent, which went against the stereotype of women at the time. As most of you may already know, Picasso was a world-renowned Spanish artist who founded the movement of Cubist painting. Born in 1881, Picasso was the epitome of the modernist genius, known throughout the world as a painter who brought a new side of visual art into focus. On the right is an example of his artwork called The Weeping Woman, painted in 1837. As you can see, it's very abstract and also has kind of a new style that is not really shown in traditional art. And however, his great talent in art also came with his firm personality, and he was often described as stubborn, intense, and arrogant. Gertrude Stein and Picasso were unique in that they perfectly captured what it meant to be a Cubist artist in two different fields, literature and visual art. For Stein, she thrived in the use of unconventional language, with one read-through of her abstract works enough to thoroughly confuse many, including myself. She utilized repetition, sounds, pronunciation, references, and foreign language in a way that is undoubtedly unfamiliar even to this day. Stein emphasized that every word, sentence, and page of her writing was just as important as another. Some of her works were poetic portraits of people like Picasso and Matisse. Her portraits really tried to capture them through both her personality and influence, and she also later on wrote two of those poetic portraits about Picasso, which I'll be talking about later. Similarly, Picasso tried to depict the whole subject through visual means. His biggest struggle was trying to paint a subject fully from all different angles in one piece, towing the line between the 2D and 3D worlds. Picasso's paintings strove to depict every part of the subject using flat exaggerations, lines, and geometric shapes. For 20th century artists, this notion was eye-catching and startling, quickly gathering a large following. Stein addresses herself in every account of Picasso that she writes, acting as his artistic counterpart, a like-minded, necessary character in Picasso's life story. Most often, she describes Picasso as a kindred spirit whose radical achievements in Cubist painting she matched exactly in Cubist literature. Although Picasso was a notoriously sexist man, Stein's homosexuality and her self-portrayal as masculine sparked his interest. Drawn to her, quote, masculinity and her, quote, androgynized figure, Picasso proposed to paint her portrait, and with a supposed 80 or so sittings, Picasso painted his portrait of Gertrude Stein, which is the picture you see here on the left. Although many claim that the portrait looked nothing like her, Stein was absolutely delighted with it, famously describing it in her monograph, Picasso 1838. For me, it is I, and it is the only reproduction of me which is always I for me. Stein's portrait skillfully captured her bodily and spiritual intensity with her pose and expression in the painting. And as Picasso's fame spread, his name became synonymous with Cubism, eventually with genius as well. This portrait links Stein to Picasso and his legacy, indirectly labeling her as a modernist genius as well, and remaining as physical proof of their connection for generations to come. In response to this portrait, Stein wrote If I Told Him, a poetic literary portrait of Picasso, which I talked about before. Following the ideals of Cubism to capture the whole subject, her literary portraits employ psychological traits as well as the interior of the subject and leaves out physical descriptions and even Picasso's name entirely. In this portrait, Stein furthers her interpretation of Picasso's personality and reputation, claiming it echoes Napoleon Bonaparte's. She repeats the name Napoleon in rhythmic patterns like who came first, Napoleon at first. Who came first, Napoleon the first. Who came first, Napoleon first. Just as Napoleon was a dictator of France and once the great man of Europe, Stein insinuates that Picasso was now the great man of the art world, serving as a creator of Cubism and one of the most known artists in the world. Stein simultaneously saw Picasso as self-centered and admirable, and she asserted that these very characteristics were part of what made him a genius. According to analysis of Vincent Giraud, to Gertrude Stein, he was the epitome of the single-minded, isolated artist. Essentially, he was also her epitome of genius. Though she never explicitly defined what it meant to be a modernist genius, we can infer that she believed genius was inborn and possessors of genius visually perceive the world in a different, more intense way, bringing alive new visions of the world for the viewer. Stein believed that Picasso's genius was inherent, and his startling perspectives were not due to some incredible enlightenment, but instead because there was something different about Picasso from the moment he was born. In her eyes, he was born to be a genius. And in a way, Gertrude Stein fits her own definition of genius. Writing in Picasso 1938, quote, Pablo and Matisse have a maleness that belongs to genius. Me too, perhaps, unquote. She claims maleness for herself despite her female biology and so we have to ask the question if she's claiming genius for herself as well. Her arrogance is reflected in Picasso, who is to her the ultimate genius. Throughout her entire career, Stein remains a self-proclaimed genius in the realm of Cubist literature. Both enthusiastic modernists in their respective fields of literature and visual art, Stein and Picasso shared the spirit and appreciation for new artistic ideas and changes. To a certain extent, their views on the world were reflected by the rest of modernist society, consequently making Stein's work an invaluable research on 20th century modernism. Her close relationship with Picasso also strengthens the reliability and importance of her explanations for his artwork and genius. She shows us who Picasso was through the eyes of the early modernists, helping to highlight both his artistic and social career in life. When it comes to understanding Picasso, Stein's works, Picasso 1938 and If I Told Him, are essential, educating us not only about his life, but also about the modernist world he helped design. Thank you for listening, and please ask me if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Clara. What a cool presentation. I also am a big fan of both Stein's writing and Picasso's art. And I mean, I'm curious whether you have a preference for Cubist literature or Cubist art and why.
Personally, I would prefer Cubist art because I'm also an artist myself and I love visual art, I love painting. And seeing him like Cubist artwork is kind of very interesting because it's such a different style from most like traditional romanticist like artworks. And it's really fun to like analyze them, kind of look at their stories and figure out why they're so different and kind of explore that as well.
Very cool. And how would you say Cubism has continued to affect, I guess, modern day art style? I mean, obviously, in the early 20th century, it was all the rage. But would you say there's sort of a legacy of Cubism now? And how do artists nowadays reflect on Cubism, if at all?
I would say there is an effect because these days you see like modern artists and like it's very like abstract forms of art that you wouldn't have imagined previously. And I think that's kind of similar to Cubism because Cubism is all about representing reality in a different way. And that kind of idea I think has influenced some artists right now.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Clara. What a great presentation.